Good to go. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah McAnulty. I run the Skype a Scientist program. And today on Skype a Scientist Live, we are joined by science communicator, scientist, and biologist currently in the field, Natalia Reagan. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited, and it happened to be that I'm in Panama at the same time this is happening. So, and also the electricity went out in my town. So hopefully you can hear me. I'm in a restaurant.
Yeah, we collectively had a slight moment of panic last night when we thought maybe this wouldn't go off without a hitch. Sometimes there are scheduled power outages for whole towns, and you make it work. You do what you can. Everybody, as you have questions throughout the next 45 minutes, please put them in the Q&A. If you look at the bottom, there's a bar, there's a chat, and there's a Q&A. You can talk in the chat if you'd like, but if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A. It's easier for me to keep track of everybody's questions. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Natalia, who's going to give us a little background about her life, where she came from, how she got here, and got one of the coolest jobs I can think of. Welcome everybody from Hackensack, New Jersey to Toronto in Canada. Hello.
Oh yes, actually my field partner here in Pedicey, Panama many years ago was Canadian. He was French Canadian. So awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick, I have a little PowerPoint. It'll be very quick, but it'll kind of give you a photo journey of how the heck I got to where I am right now, and it's all over the place. So if anything can be a lesson from this particular time with you is there's no right way of doing anything. There's no linear trajectory in life. It can be anything you want it to be. And I hope, if anything, I can share that with you. So I'm just gonna start, and I joke, I'm a professor, and I always joke that I'm the worst at doing this part of setting this up. Let's play from the start. Okay, so that's going ape. Everything is going ape in my life. First and foremost, I just want to throw this out here. Humans are primates ourselves, and even beyond that, we belong to the family Hominidae, which means we are part of the great ape family. So we're always going ape in a way. Yes, I'm a scientist, and oftentimes people think that you have to look or act a certain way to be a scientist, and I'd like to tell you, you don't have to. You can be kind of anything you want. I also come from a background of doing comedy and performance, so you can combine things that you love. But how the heck did I get here? Good question. So when I was a little kid, I used to have recurring King Kong nightmares where King Kong would come and I'd hear the footsteps in the distance, and he basically would eat my whole family. And so I was terrified of King Kong until one day I was able to lucid dream, and King Kong ended up knocking on my door and was this orangutan. And after that, I was in love. Primates. And from there, I was obsessed with any animal. My mom couldn't stop me kissing goats. Apparently that was my thing. So it's surprising I didn't go into goat. Is there a goatology? Allie Ward needs to, there's gotta be a
There's gotta be a goatology. I'm sure it's not goatology, but
it's a bad field to be in. Sorry, a lot of puns. But I ended up not being so good at science and math in my junior high and high school years. So I was like, I don't know if I can be a scientist, which I will be here to tell you, you don't necessarily have to be good at all the things. You can actually find and carve your own path. So I did the thing that I was also good at, which was comedy, and became an actress, which I did for many years, and played a bunch of different roles. My first acting job was playing a dancing chicken McNugget in a McDonald's commercial, and so on and so forth. But then when I was 25, I actually got hit by a truck, and that kind of stopped everything and made me go, wait, what are you doing? You always love primates, you love science. Why didn't you go into that? And it made me reevaluate my life. And so I went back to school and I studied spider monkeys. And this is actually a photo that I don't generally share because it sends a message that can be misconstrued. This is a former pet. Monkeys should never be used as pets ever. They're terrible pets. This monkey, that face looks like I'm smiling. I am terrified. I am actually in massive fear. The next photo, that monkey is jumping on me. It was not a fun moment. But while we were here in 2010, we actually got that monkey into a sanctuary where she belonged. But this is where I came and fell in love with field work, the forest, and, well, spider monkeys. So I studied these spider monkeys. These are some spider monkeys here in the region. I put together this, multiple studies about where they were, how they were exploiting their resources here in the region, because there's a lot of deforestation here. And I fell in love with this land. but I also really wanted to do science communication. So I wanted to combine art and science, which everyone kind of looked at me like, wait, what? You're going to combine science and comedy? Yeah, it actually is a really fun and I think natural progression, because I oftentimes read scientific articles or even textbooks and I find myself giggling because there's a lot of funny stuff in there, especially with monkeys and apes. So I was able to kind of marry the two and make science funny and break it down for folks. This is me with wearing all the cameras on my head to make science communication. And eventually I did a Bigfoot television show with Dean Cain, who was 1990s Superman. Your parents may know who Dean Cain is, or, you know, he's gone through many incarnations. In the
audience might be well familiar with Dean Cain. Probably not the students.
Right. He does a lot of Hallmark movies, I think, at this point. But we did this Bigfoot television show where I basically was able to combine my knowledge of primatology and primates, because people are looking for Bigfoot, which in theory is a primate. And I was trying to teach them, if you're looking for a new species of primate, how would you do that? So again, marrying those two things. And I created a web series called Talking Science. Also, another title we had for it was kind of Talking Poop, essentially, because we talked a lot about poop with my co-host Todd and this was a way, again, of marrying science and comedy. I then worked with Neil deGrasse Tyson, writing comedy and also doing science communication for him. I did television shows like Wonderama, where we talked with kids about how humans fit into the order Primates, how we're primates as well. I also got to teach kids how to do howler monkey calls, which I'm very happy to do if you would like that too, because sometimes the howler monkeys call back. So if you go on vacation in Mexico or Central America or South America, you can try the howler monkey call. And they're terrible texters, but they generally call back. Then I did podcasts and things like that. So basically, again, combining science and comedy. Puppets. I have a puppet here that I'll occasionally bring out. This is Carl. I'm not very good at ventriloquy, but hello, my name's Carl. This is the way I've kind of combined the two. And now I'm working with a sanctuary called Animal Tracks. This is a former pet who is now living her best life at Animal Tracks. And I go there and I try to do some enrichment activities. She is technically restrained, so she cannot touch me. But yes, this is some of the stuff that I'm doing now as a science communicator. But as I am at this moment, I'm back in my old field site, hopefully to open a primate field school in due time, where I can have other students, including maybe yourselves, if you're interested, to come down here and learn how to become a primatologist and work in the forest, in the field, and put together research projects. So there you have it. That's down the road here in Arriba. And thanks, and just remember to keep exploring and ask me all the questions. So
awesome. Thank you. We already have so many questions, so buckle up. Let's do it. My first question, that monkey ape that you just showed us, there was a pet, the most recent one, the kind of
the baboon. Yes,
it's a baboon.
So Chrissy is a Hamadryas olive baboon hybrid. So baboons are interesting. They actually have a lot of hybrids about species where, you know, the two can get together and create offspring that is still viable. And so she is a hybrid baboon. Cool.
I was like, I've never seen an animal that looks quite like that. That explains it. Hybrid. Very cool. Yeah. Okay. So we've got a bunch of questions from PS/IS109 in Brooklyn. What's the weirdest thing that you've ever seen on the job? That's from Brianna.
That's a great question. The weirdest thing. Well, I mean, there's been a lot of weird things. I mean, this is something that I knew to expect, but I remember watching a howler monkey give birth in Costa Rica. And, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, so a cool thing about monkeys and apes that are different from humans is when they give birth, the baby faces them. So they can do it by themselves. Now, human children, we face the other way, or we're supposed to. So you need help. So this monkey literally was just kind of pulling the baby out, you know, putting the baby on them. She's fine. She's cool. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't the most pleasant experience, but then I watched her kind of lick up the baby, eat the afterbirth, and kind of go on about her day. So that to me was not necessarily the strangest, because it is considered normal, but it was the coolest. This was kind of neat in terms of spider monkeys. They're often called the chimpanzees of the New World. We're moving away from the term New World because of its sort of colonialist underpinning. So I would say chimpanzee of the Americas. And one of the things that chimpanzees do is they do these sort of territorial walks around their perimeter. and they will attack other chimpanzees who are not supposed to be there. Now, I've never seen spider monkeys do that. There's not been a ton of literature about this, but we saw an all male group being very quiet, because usually their alarm call if they see us because they're scared, but they actually were doing a circle of the perimeter and were very quiet, and then started throwing tree branches at us. Wow. And I have it on video. Yeah. So I actually, you know, because it was one of those things like, wow, is this really happening? Like they're going for it. Yeah. So
that's wild. That's a great question. Sure. That's a great question for sure. Our next question is from Lorenzo. What is your favorite type of primate? Well, I feel like I have to be loyal to my beloved spider monkeys, but I have to say, given the King Kong dreams growing up, I have a deep and just enduring affinity for gorillas, especially Growers gorillas, which are a subspecies found only in Democratic Republic of Congo. They're, heavily endangered because of deforestation, mining in that area. And so I was actually hoping to study them. I was going to do volunteer work with an organization in 2008, but it was too dangerous to go there at that time. And so I pivoted like you do in life, because life will throw you curveballs and you just kind of dodge them and go with it, or you catch them. I'm not good at the whole baseball metaphors, but I did spider monkeys, but Growers gorillas are really fascinating. But I do videos about different primates. So if any of the students here have any monkeys or apes that they want maybe a video being made about them in particular, if you have a favorite one, let me know maybe in the chat, and I can go ahead and take notes and make some for you. Great. Awesome. Yeah. The next question is from Christina. How do they restrain monkeys when you're near them?
Well, so in that particular case, they have a leash that she's on, and she's a former pet. So she is generally 100% accustomed to humans. And this is exactly why this organization, Animal Tracks, they're wonderful. They take in former pets that unfortunately cannot be reintroduced to the forest because they wouldn't know what to do. It's kind of like, you were raised in a home, and if someone just dropped you off in a forest, you'd be like, well, what do I eat? So she's been with humans her whole life. So she's completely accustomed to them, or habituated, which is the term we use. And so, the leash is, to be fair, mostly for show, in terms of she's not going to generally do anything. She's pretty chill. In fact, she was very bored with me. It was kind of fun. I was in a banana costume, and she's just like, that's all you got. But I generally keep a distance, especially if they are free ranging primates. There's no reason I should I remember the first time I got too close. I was doing field work in Costa Rica. I was going to primate field school, and the teacher, Paul Garber, who's a wonderful primatologist, I was studying capuchins, which are white-faced monkeys, and one was kind of doing an aggressive stance. And Dr. Garber like, Natalia, that means you need to step back. Because I was like, oh, that's so cool. And he's like, no, that means you need to move.
Get out of there.
They may be weak, but they're mighty, and you need to respect their space. So yeah, that's always important.
Very, very important. Okay, our next question is, how many types of monkeys, how many species of monkeys are there?
That's a very good question, because as I say with speciation, every time I teach, it's complicated. So, that could range anywhere between 300 to 900 if we get into like subspecies, and like there's always arguments about what exactly constitutes a subspecies. Yeah. I was just lecturing about this last night. It's hard to draw lines. Now with DNA, we can, draw better lines, but it's still, for instance, I studied the Azuero spider monkey, which is Ateles jeffrei azurensis. It's a subspecies of Ateles jeffrei, but there's never really been DNA analysis. It's only based on the geographic location. So like, for instance, there's a huge chunk of land between Ateles jeffrei, the species, and then the area that I work. And so they've kind of put them in two different subspecies, and then that would be the parent species. So like, essentially, it's complicated because it's hard to really delineate, even that's the other thing. I was talking about this last night. For instance, with giraffes, humans have looked at giraffes and thought they were one species and 9 subspecies. But when they did DNA analysis, they found there was 4 species and subspecies. So even to our own naked eye, we don't necessarily know. And with DNA analysis, it kind of opens the door to understanding speciation even better.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks. The next question is, which primate other than humans is most like humans? That's from Charlie.
That's a great question. Well, so in terms, okay, people ask if they're going to be Planet of the Apes, right? And I joke, well, we're already living in it because we're apes. But macaques are a type of monkey that can survive anywhere. They are the second most widely distributed primate in the world, humans being the first, right? And so they can hack it. They're the ones that you see, the hot tub monkeys, where you see them in Japan and up in the mountains, and they use the hot springs. Very smart. You see them in, Rock of Gibraltar. You see them in, kind of desert areas, in jungle areas, in urban environments. This is because they're generalists, meaning they can eat anything. When you have a very specific diet, that means if that particular food is kind of yanked out of your environment, you're in trouble, right? Especially if you have teeth or, a gut that is built for that type of food. Macaques are like humans, they're trash compactors, right? And so that's why humans we kind of can just survive anywhere, where we can eat anything, and that makes it easier. Also, I mean, in terms of our closest genetic relatives are bonobos and chimpanzees. And there's always a question of who are we more like? And we like to look at primates as models for human behavior. But we have to remember that even though they might be models, they are still on their evolutionary trajectory, and their behavior might have changed in the past to present too. But as bonobos are known to be more amorous, they definitely resolve conflict in different ways than chimpanzees do. And so it's kind of a question of who are we more alike. But bonobos, I like to think we're more like bonobos in many ways. We're, I think, at the core of it, very good, and we rely more on cooperation than we do on competition and aggression. In our best days, yes, for sure. Yeah, I think we have we can aspire to be as bonobo-like as we can. Like, I agree. Great. Our next question is from Mrs. Churchwell's 5th grade science class. How old do the primates have to be to give birth? That's a good question. It varies. So, and it varies. And also things like even status might affect where they are. If you in certain species, in baboons, and sometimes if you're the offspring of a female that is higher up, you might have children younger, and also have more frequent interbirth intervals, meaning you have more kids more frequently. Same in mandrills, which is they look more like baboons, but they're actually more closely related to a monkey called a mangabey. They're the ones that have a really cool blue-red face and matching keister. But yeah, so it really does depend. For instance, orangutans are really interesting. They stay with their mom till they're 8, which is a very long time. There's a lot of primates, maybe a couple years, 3 years, maybe maturity around 4 or 5 years. But orangutans stick with their moms. I always joke that the second longest time to humans, because we all know 50-year-olds living in their parents' basement, So they stay with their mom. They're on their mom for 3 years, which is a very long time. So it really does depend on the primates and the environment and resource availability. One of the things I always tell my classes is that the environment, what we have available for food, and just how it's being affected really does impact behavior. For sure. The next question is from Madison. Are kinkajous monkeys? No, they're not monkeys, but we actually have kinkajous in the area here. They are mammals, but they are not monkeys. They are nocturnal, and I actually saw one during the day here, and it was one of the coolest finds when I was here in 2010. So they do have them in this area. They are really cool, but they are not, unfortunately, monkeys. But I'd still like to hang out with one. That's awesome. Yeah. Also, for everybody at home, if you see an animal that's supposed to be awake only at night and you see it during the day, go the other direction, like walk away from it, because it might have rabies. That's like one of the signs. So just keep that information in your back pocket. You never know when you're going to need it. Don't say hello. If you see a skunk or raccoon during the day, get out of there. Maybe call animal control. All right. The next question is from Pond Cove School in Cape Elizabeth, Maine. And there's another question. There's also the same question. Cool. Have you ever met Jane Goodall? Yes, actually. Yes. 3 times now. The first time, so they say, like, never meet your heroes. You're only going to be disappointed. With Jane Goodall, every time I'm she can't exceed expectations even more. I mean, she's just the most, not only is she just lovely, kind, there's just a calmness and a tranquility over her, but she also has this very dry wit. She's very funny, so you're just kind of like, oh, that was a joke. And that was a very good joke. And it took me a second because I'm expecting just like wisdom and only, just sort of these gems of, exactly. No, but she's actually very, very funny. The first time I met her was at IPS, a conference I attended in 2016. she was giving the keynote talk that day. I was giving a talk to like 15 people, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. But it was still really cool to meet her. She was very tired. The second time was after a screening. And, you know, I remember this is the thing that I still do now. I mean, this is advice she gave me in this meeting that I continue is when you take photos with somebody, you know, as you take a photo like, hey, and you look at the camera, she says, no, look at each other. You're going to get a more genuine, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it, it makes me want to cry. Look at each other. You get a genuine reaction of how you're feeling in that moment. So every picture I've taken with her since then, because I met her again on a Sirius XM show, my friend let me ask her questions. We look at each other, and it's always funny. I look at her and I just kind of almost start crying. It's, you know,
that's
she's
amazing.
The ultimate inspiration for me, you know.
That's great. That's solid. I'm going to use that the next time I'm with a group of friends taking a picture. Our next question is, do primates mark territory with scent or something else?
Yes, some do. And in fact, the spider monkey that I study, it's not necessarily, we don't know if it's actually scent marking per se. It could possibly, the females, how do I put this? The females have, their lady bits are a bit longer and they're more like males. Let's just put it this way. And they're not 100% sure why that is, but they can drop little bits of urine as they go with these pendulous bits.
Situation.
And yes, and it's also very helpful because they're about the same size, males and females, and spider monkeys. It helps us tell them apart. They're also stink bites in ring-tailed lemurs. So ring-tailed lemurs, which you've seen probably many cartoons and things like that, they will actually have stink bites where they kind of, it's a competitive, and go back and forth with one another, like, and I stink you. So there are ways that they can, you know, scent mark and different callitrichids, the really small bodied primates you also see in the Americas, will do some scent marking as well. So yes.
Great, thanks. The next question is from Chris. Do you prefer comedy or science?
Oh God, I don't know if I could do one without the other.
Both.
Honestly. Yeah. No, but it's a good question. Well, I get asked to do, it's funny. I did a TV show a couple of weeks ago for History Channel, and I remember having a break and going, I hate not being able to make jokes, you know, because we were talking about deeply serious stuff, but the jokes were it was just there, but I couldn't take them because they want it to be very serious, you know. I'm like, oh,
mysterious. Yeah.
I don't think I can, I mean, science, because I think both, that's the thing. I think both can change the world. You know, I think comedy, you know, we're living through really tough times. And I think comedy can elevate all of us. And I think science can elevate all of us. And I think if you combine the two, guess what? You've got
more powerful,
and you're spreading it to people that might be like, oh, science, it's so dry, it's so boring. It's like, no, it's not. It's actually really cool. It's funny.
Yeah.
But that's a good question. Right. It's a hard question.
Very good question. Yeah. All right. The next question is from Ethan. What did primates evolve from?
Uh-oh.
I can say it again. You're moving now. What did primates evolve from?
Okay, that's a good question. So primates, we don't come so first, this is a good opportunity to say primates don't necessarily we don't come from monkeys or, you know, or apes. We have a common ancestor, right? So, you know, if we go way back, you know, we have a common ancestor pretty much with anything and everything in the world, you know, and so the first primates like plesiadapiforms, and even the very, very first primates, or like the semblance of what a primate would look like, is more like a shrew than anything. And we're found in the Americas millions and millions of years ago. And then as we, you know, go through time, we've got Miocene apes, which, you know, gave rise to the upright walking hominins. So it's more like these like sort of shrew-like, almost, you know, creatures that you see in fossil record that don't really look like modern day monkeys or apes, but they have enough similarities where we can kind of connect those dots. Yeah.
Very cool. The next, we have a couple questions about lifespans, like about how long do they live, who lives the longest, that sort of thing.
So that's a very good question. So I believe Tarzan, which was a chimpanzee, I think Tarzan lived to be about 70. He was a chimpanzee that was in captivity. So again, wild versus captive, you're going to have very different lifespans because of just the things that can happen in the wild, you know, whether it's, you know, getting predated upon by whatever's in the region, or falling, or this or that, or getting ill or sick. So it really does vary. I mean, spider monkeys, I don't know the oldest, probably like, you know, maybe 20 years old, you know, some trying to think, callitrichids don't live as long, maybe teens and so on and so forth, but like 30 years, you know, there was a gorilla that I really this is quite young. He died pretty young. There's a gorilla named Cesar who died, I think at 23, but that was, he had an intestinal blockage. So you hear some, you know, animals living up to, you know, 35, 40, 50 years, depending on care. Diet has a huge role in it in terms of captive care, because in the past, zoos were doing the best they could, but oftentimes were feeding these primates diets like humans without realizing that these primates had very specific diets that they weren't taken care of correctly. You know, for instance, gorillas are primarily vegetarian. They eat a lot of bamboo. They eat a lot of, you know, they eat a lot of vegetation. And if they're getting meat and dairy and things like that, it could give them things like heart disease and lead to, you know, younger deaths.
Yeah. That's actually directly related to our next question, because we have a couple questions that are asking, like, do all primates like bananas? What do they generally eat? Like, so yeah, like, is it just varied depending on the species?
It's a great question. First of all, I am a primate that does not like bananas. I dress in banana costumes all the time. I have one with me because why not? But okay, so it's a great question. It's a lot of variation, but generally fruit or any sort of sugar is desired. In fact, you know, my graduate advisor was going to do a drunken monkey study, because alcohol, which is basically the product of fermenting fruit, has sometimes been indulged in by these primates because they lived in areas where humans were around. And she was trying to figure out if there was a connection between wanting that fruit because of that ethanol content, or if they just like the sugar. But most primates do like sugar. But if we're going to look at, like, say, for instance, the great apes, chimpanzees and bonobos love fruit. They will eat leaves and other vegetation. They will eat meat. Chimpanzees will hunt. Another really cool thing, chimpanzee males will hunt in groups. They oftentimes will share the meat. A really cool thing, going a step further, and this shout out to Jill Primates, who's an amazing primatologist. She is also another hero. She studies chimpanzees in Senegal, so more West Africa. She found that female chimpanzees were actually hunting by themselves bush babies, which are golagos, which are also another type of primate. They're part of the strepsirrhines, the lemurs and lorises. So it's primates eating primates, which humans will eat primates, so it does happen. But this is the coolest thing, they were stripping off leaves off the sticks and basically stabbing into trees. So not only were they hunting, they were hunting with tools, right? And also chimpanzees will eat, these dipping sticks. This was the beginning of understanding and also rewriting sort of human history. Jane Goodall discovered that chimpanzees were actually using tools to dip into these, ant hills or termite mounds and eating, clearing them off. And so that was this first idea of tool use. And when she told Louis Leakey, he basically said, we need to rewrite, what because Homo habilis, one of our ancestors, 1.8 million years ago, was named Homo habilis, being a handyman for using tools. Well, if we're seeing chimpanzees using tools, that kind of changes flips the script. On top of that, a friend of mine actually did studies of chimpanzees on two different sides of the river, and they found that there was even like culture of which chimps were eating which types of ants, because there was this very aggressive ant that they would use these really long dipping sticks, like 6 feet, 8 feet tall. My friend Cleve, who did the studies, about 6'6", and these sticks were taller than him. But because they were so aggressive, he dipped them in, then he'd pull them out, or they would dip them in, not Cleve, so they wouldn't get bit. It was kind of the idea. But one side of the river, they did it, the other side, they didn't. Just an example of culture. Cool. So that's an example. Gorillas, like I said, they might have those huge canines. A lot of primates have these huge canines. That's less indicative of their diet and more indicative of male-male competition for the ladies. That's how they fight for the ladies. So gorillas have these big canines, but ignore those canines for food. Look at their chewing teeth and look at the top of their head. They have this big crest of bone on the top of their head that connects to these very big muscles that help them chew hard to chew foods like bamboo. I call them the pandas of the primates. So they're more vegetarian. So this King Kong being this like, I'm gonna eat, my childhood nightmare was totally wrong. Right. And then you've got like callitrichis, these small body primates in South America and Central America that like to eat exudates or gum from trees, like sap from trees. And so they have these really cool meat incisors that can help them like open the tree, get the gum. And they have these little claw-like nails, because all primates have fingernails, except these guys have claw-like nails, or so they're nails, but they're like more like claws, and they climb up the tree, get in there, eat the gum. So there's all these different types of diet. I'm trying to think. Oh, and then there's columbines, which are a type of, let's say old world monkey, but moving away from that term, but monkeys that live in Africa and Asia, the Cercopithecines, that have stomachs that are geared to eating leaves. So they're basically eating tons of leaves, and leaves are very hard to digest. Howler monkeys here in this area they're not that type of the monkey, but they do have their own way of digesting these leaves because they're big leaf eaters. And because they're hard to digest, they also spend a lot of time doing nothing all day, just digesting. Like I play the game termite mound or howler monkey. And then when it moves, I'm still not sure. It could be a bunch of termites, but it's usually a howler monkey. So yeah, there's a lot of variation. And like I said, the macaques eat anything. Trying to think of other really kind of neat, funky diets. I'll probably think of 5 as soon as I get off here, but
right. That's great. Yeah. Thanks.
Oh, and also spider monkeys eat fruit. And that is also when primates eat something very specific, like say, for instance, fruit doesn't grow on all trees. And it definitely doesn't grow on all trees at all times. So usually if you eat something specific like that, you need a huge home range to kind of bounce around. And it also requires a memory to remember, oh yeah, the fig tree. Where was that again? Where is that again? And when does it fruit? So it also helps with, sort of cognition and understanding brain development over time.
Super cool. Awesome. All right. Our next question is from Nora Cronin, Presentation Academy. Can monkeys communicate with sign language or communicate with humans? There were other questions about communication broadly. So if you could speak to that would be great.
Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of different types of communication. There have been cases where chimpanzees and gorillas have been taught, certain amount of sign language, especially gorillas, usually pretty basic signing. They're not writing soliloquies necessarily, but I know there are folks that actually are primatologists that would like to do more work in that area. I actually just talked to an old friend whose his partner is looking to actually teach sign language to chimpanzees. That's like one of her goals in her dissertation work. So there is a movement to do that, to kind of help understand and bridge that gap between communicating. There also is like, why don't we just learn their language, in terms of understanding what different pant and boots, especially with chimpanzee, like what do these sounds mean and understanding over time. Like for instance, again, going off where I study, spider monkeys will have like, different alarm calls where it's like, wah, 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 wah. I'm not gonna do it super loud, I'm in a restaurant, but it sounds almost like a bird. It sounds like a bird call. And that's them saying, hey, get out of here. Like, what are you doing here? Sometimes they do a whoop, where it's like, where are you? And that's how they kind of find each other. And funny enough, when you do field work, sometimes that's the way we decide to find our friends that way. We just do a big whoop. They do little whinny sounds sometimes too when they're grooming each other. So there's ways to communicate with one another, but also to communicate about the outside world. Guenons are really interesting. Guenons include many species of monkeys. They're a type of monkey that live in Africa. And oftentimes they'll have different alarm calls for different predators. So for instance, if they do the alarm call for the leopard, they go up. If they do the alarm call for the bird of prey, they go down. So it basically tells the group like, hey, we got a leopard on the loose, get on up. And because there are multiple species of the same type of monkey, but they're different species, but they're very closely related, but they don't intermix, they know each other's calls. So it's almost like they kind of know enough of, it's like when you know enough of a language where you can like, donde está el biblioteca? Except it's like, there's a leopard coming, so you know enough of the language to get by and not get killed.
That's cool. I would definitely, if I was in the forest, the jungle, like want to know what's the leopard sound so I can like get out of there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and a howler monkey, real quick, I can teach you that if you want to learn, the howler monkeys have it's a very hoarse sound, but if you ever go to, Southern Mexico, Central America, you might hear this in the morning. This is what I've been waking up to, is a and then they'll do that in the morning to kind of let the other groups in the area know, Jim, Stephanie, and Carol are down the way. You know what I mean? Like where the groups are. They kind of sets it up, and then they'll do them throughout the day, sometimes to alarm each other. So
cool. Amazing. All right. Well, that answers our, could you do the howler monkey sound question? Checking that one off the list. Here's a quick one. Are you related to Ronald Reagan?
Oh God, probably somewhere back in Cork County, Ireland, but no.
No, cool. All right. The next question, have you ever like been injured in the line of work other than when you got hit by the truck?
Yeah, so I have a bad leg because I'm missing a muscle in my lower right leg, which is responsible for balance. So I jokingly call myself the Jack Tripper of primatology, which is very much dating myself. Your parents or your grandparents might know that reference. But basically, I guess the worst injury, they're always so stupid. It's like me trying to cut open a mango with my pocket knife and like slicing my finger open. And that's when my field partner was like, you can't have a machete. I don't trust you. But yeah. I remember this is a fun injury. So, and it was not too bad. There's a tree here called the acacia tree that has one of the most terrible ant species on it. It's a symbiotic sort of relationship where the ant nests in the tree. They protect the tree by biting people, but they get the benefit of like being able to mate and have lay their eggs in these little holes in the tree, and they have these massive thorns. It's just a terrible tree. Wasps love to nest in this tree. So one day, it was one of my last days in the field, and field work can be pretty brutal. So I was kind of done, and I was turning the corner, and my guide turned to me and said, "Shh, you have to be quiet. If the wasps hear you, they'll attack." And apparently my partner didn't hear it, and he bumped the tree, and basically the ants got all over him, and then got all over me because I was right behind him. And then the wasps attacked me. I took off running. And then I slipped because we were in a creek. I slipped and I fell, and my tailbone, ironically, is a little too long, like a monkey. I've got a bit of a tail, and I landed square on my tailbone. And I just remember it was one of those moments. I don't cry during field work generally, but I cried. So I was just like, why? I was
That's
fine,
awful.
but it was just, it was a series of events that made me go, okay, I think I'm ready to go back home for a moment.
Yeah, for sure. All right, the next question. What is your favorite place to travel where you can study primates?
Oh, well, I mean, here, Tennessee, Panama, or this is Los Santos, Panama, is where I did my fieldwork in 2010. And I just fell in love with the area. It's a tropical dry forest. So it's a little bit, you can tell I'm moist. I'm very sweaty right now, but it's not as humid as say other parts of Panama. I still have yet to go, and I'm hoping, knock on wood, that I will get to DRC and get to see Brower's gorillas one day. I'm not saying it'll trump Panama, but I would really love to get there one day.
Yeah, major bucket list item for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. My bucket list is always to go to South Australia to see the big giant Australian cuttlefish mating, but it's very far away, and the plane ride is expensive. So, but one day maybe I'll be able.
One day.
All right. The next question: were there humans first or monkeys first?
Good question. Monkeys first. Monkeys have been around for millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of years. And then Miocene apes, we see apes sort of, in fact, there was a radiation of apes during the Miocene about 25 to 5 million years ago. There were multiple species of ape. Right now, there's only, gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos, orangutans. So we only have a few apes still around, but there was a radiation at that point. And then over time, humans have only been around. We think roughly around 300,000, like that sort of changes every time we find, new remains. And then there's also like an argument about, again, it's complicated. That's not a human, that's, Homo heidelbergensis. Or,
Right.
So monkeys first.
Yes, cool. All right. The next question, are there programs to help protect certain monkeys? Are there endangered monkeys?
Yes. So the IUCN, which has a list of all the endangered species out there. And there is a red list, which is kind of like oh God, they're in big trouble. And unfortunately, one of the biggest ones that is at risk is, the orangutan. The other strawberry blonde or red ginger ape. But they're heavily endangered because of deforestation, human encroachment. They only live in Borneo and Sumatra. That's the only place where you can find them. And so they're critically endangered. Even the spider monkeys I study here are critically endangered. And there are programs. In fact, there's a lot of programs. If you actually wanted to, either donate or look into even volunteering or just seeing how you can get involved. If you, for instance, I don't know how many are on the list right now, but there's many species of lemur that are on this list too, as well, because Madagascar's had a big problem with deforestation as well. Human encroachment or human just activity, which is basically encroachment, whether usually it's deforestation, hunting is, there's different local groups that will hunt monkeys and apes, mostly monkeys at this point, but and usually they've done it sustainably through the past. And I try to be very show cultural relativism and not be judgmental that way, because if they've been doing it for thousands of years, who am I to come in and say, wait a minute, don't hunt the monkey? It's like if they've been doing this for a long time and they know what they're doing, and a lot of groups have done it sustainably in the past, So yeah, but there are lots of groups. And if you have questions or have specific questions of how maybe you really like one particular group of monkeys and you want to see if I can find an organization, just let me know.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. The next question is, are there monkeys in Europe?
I mean, there's me. No, there are no. So usually the most northern latitude monkey there is the Japanese macaque. But they are, so that not in Europe, in Japan. Sorry for that sound. They're doing electrical work. Okay, good, perfect. So the Japanese macaque is the highest latitude monkey. There's none in Europe. There is the Barbary macaque. Again, macaques everywhere. The Barbary macaque you can find on Rock of Gibraltar. So that's close to Europe in the Mediterranean, but not in Europe proper. So the only primates really that have taken over Europe are just humans.
Humans, that's us. All right, cool. Next question. Do primates ever get allergies? Other than humans, we know we do.
Yes. Like, are you thinking food allergies or more kind of like sneezy allergies, I guess? I don't know, actually. That's a good, I'm sure that there are examples of allergies, but I can't think of any. I've been stumped. This is good. Yeah. This is good. This means, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to either pose this question to Twitter like we all do and see if, I don't know if any, I'm trying to think of food allergies, I'm sure, but I don't know. I've never seen a real sneezy monkey, but then again, maybe they do it in private. Maybe. We may never know. All right, cool. I think we have time for one more question. Yeah. And that's going to be from Jody. What is the difference between monkeys and lemurs? Lemurs. Okay, cool. So monkeys and lemurs. Lemurs are strepsirrhines. Lemurs are only found on Madagascar. So there's this thing called the post-orbital bar, basically around your eye. There's a closure in monkeys. There's not a closure. I know this is kind of dry. There's not a closure in lemurs. Lemurs also have a tapetum, which is this like little thin layer on their eye that can almost gives them an eye shine. Oh, yeah. Some of them, they have it for the nocturnal ones. Many of them are nocturnal. There also is a rhinarium. You know how your dog or cat might have a wet nose? Lemurs will have a little bit of a rhinarium. That's why they kind of look like cats. Sometimes you look at a lemur and I feel like a cat and a teddy bear made a baby. They're so cute. Yeah, they really are kind of pretty darn adorable. They also have grooming claws oftentimes, which is I remember when I did the Bigfoot show, one of the contestants brought up it's called a grooming or a toilet claw, which is used to groom. They also have that, and it kind of looks like a weird nail on their finger. They also have a tooth comb, which is kind of neat. They can kind of use that to groom as well, and it looks like a comb made out of teeth. It looks almost like little tiny lines in it. Mm-hmm. So there's all these little tiny differences. The prehensile tail, which a lot of times people associate with monkeys, by the way, is very rare in terms of monkeys. That tail that's being able to use as a fifth arm, like a fifth arm that you can grab onto things. You only find that in monkeys in the Americas. Spider monkeys, howlers, capuchins here in the region have one. Lemurs do not, but their tail helps them in terms of balance and things of that sort. So and lemurs are excellent dancers. I don't know if you've ever Googled a shafak dancing, but do it. All right, I'm putting that on my to-do list for today. All right, well, we are just about at time here, and we always ask everybody the same two questions at the end of these sessions. The first, you have everyone's attention in the whole world, and you can tell them one thing about primates. What do you tell them? Okay. Well, in terms of conservation, just because I feel like it needs to be said, is we are primates, and primates should not be kept as pets. First and foremost, right. Just no, please don't. And going a step further, it's tough. Primatologists become primatologists because we think they're adorable. We'd be lying if we said, oh no, I don't find monkeys cute. But when we share these memes of monkeys and outfits and things like that, it also can be bad for those primates because monkeys in entertainment have also been treated terribly. So monkeys make terrible pets. we should, you know, be treating them like our cousins rather than as our cat or our dog.
Right. Cool. All right.
You still have cat or dog.
Yeah, well, cats, that's a whole other conversation. The next question is, you have everybody's attention in the world and you can tell them one thing about literally anything. It can be about whatever. What do you tell them?
Let's see. I would say we're coming into a time where it seems like you may be inheriting a world that is going through a lot of hurt and it is falling apart, but there is still hope. And so I just want everyone to know that please don't give up. There have been times in history when groups of people have been faced with really terrible times. Resources have been stripped away just because they weren't sustainably used. We can do this. We got this. We got this. And any of you can do, and I don't want to sound too trite, but like, I really think anybody can be anything they want. And so if you feel like you don't have what it takes to be your dream thing, find a way. You can carve out your own ecological niche and we can come together. And I think we have a great future ahead of us. So I really think the future, I believe in the future. And I think the generations coming up give me so much hope. You are such beautiful souls. And I love how you're so open and tolerant and just keep that going. Keep that, that optimism alive. Yes.
Awesome. Good thing to end on. Where can we find you on social media? Do you have anything else that you'd like to share with us before we wrap up?
Sure. You can find me at Natalia Reagan on Twitter and on Instagram. I have a TikTok at Behold Natalia, which has a lot of primate videos. I'm hopefully going to be starting a primate field school here in a nonprofit in Panama that will bring students down and students here in Panama and teach them how to become primatologists or biologists. I even told Sarah, we would love to get a boat. We were actually just looking at, because we're right near the water and we're like, we should get a boat and see if we could do some, you know, marine biology up here as well. So
yeah,
but thank you. Those were wonderful questions.
Yeah, and we didn't get to all of them. So if you asked a question and we didn't get to it, I'm sorry. We went through as many as we possibly could. And our next session, just so you're aware, is coming up shortly. It is going to be on artificial intelligence of drug discovery. So that means like finding new drugs is sometimes challenging and sometimes really labor intensive for us to like find new drugs, whether it be for cancer, whether it is for antibiotics, like we need drugs for so many things. And this scientist uses artificial intelligence to find them. It's going to be really cool. So you can RSVP for that right on the link that I just put in the chat. We hope to see lots of you there. Natalia, thank you for sharing all of your knowledge with us.
This has been so much fun. I feel like, hold on. I'll sign off with I didn't get to use the props, but I'll.
Goodbye, Gorilla Gloves.
Bye. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you, Kay. Kay, you're awesome. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Goodbye, everyone.